I was giving him attitude. I was just like, rolling my eyes. He's like, what's your problem? And I was just like, you weren't even paying me any of mine. He turned around to me, looked me in the face and said, so what? Do you want me to be afraid of you? I was like, oh, this one, I can't play with him. He's the one. That's when I knew. Hi, my name is Isosa.
And my name is Fulll.
And we are the
Cokers.
He was a friend to my cousin's husband, and he came for holiday. Mind you, I didn't know he existed, nothing. They asked me if I wanted to go out that night because
We were still very Jacusco.
Very
borrowing Apostle's word.
Right. So They asked me if I wanted to go out, and I said, yeah. I got dressed, came out the house, got in the car. He literally was at my doorstep, got in the car, and he was sitting in the front seat. I got in the back seat. And so my cousin was like, oh, hey, girl, this is
my husband's friend.
My husband's friend, right? And I was like, oh, hey, friend. He said, hey, so dry. He didn't give me the time of day. I was just like, okay, I don't know who this guy is, but whatever. He's so weird. And then we went to a restaurant, and that's when I actually got to see his face. So when I saw his face, I was like, oh, wow, he's cute. And so immediately I'm telling myself, girl, get your life together. You just got out of a really bad relationship. Stop looking at men. That's exactly what I told myself. And, but I was just literally trying to catch his attention the whole night.
Yeah, I saw her that night. And mind you, I'm still Jacusco, But even in the midst of that, I remember I heard in the back of my head, the voice that said, don't be surprised if that's your wife. But I didn't take it serious, because we're going out to have fun, You never know how you could get lucky. Remind you again, I said I was Jacusco, but got at a different point. Of course, I thought she was cute too, beautiful girl, dark skin. But again, yeah. So I think by the end of that night, I asked for her number, and that was how it started. Yeah.
We were in Nigeria, and like I said before, we weren't really devoted Christians. We were definitely 1 foot in, 1 foot out, clubbing on Saturdays, Fridays, and in church on Sundays. And so we happened to be at the beach during this time, and I needed to use the bathroom. He had been ignoring me, literally throughout that day. And yeah, you were ignoring me.
Okay. I don't remember that.
Oh, me, I remember.
Okay.
So he was taking me to where the bathroom was because I didn't know where it was. And I was giving him attitude. I was just rolling my eyes. He's like, what's your problem? And I was just like, you weren't even paying me any of mine. You were ignoring me.
You were sonning me though. But keep going, yeah. Say that part.
So I was just like, yeah, you were ignoring me and all that stuff. And he was like, he turned around to me, looked me in the face and said, so what? Do you want me to be afraid of you? I was like, oh, this one, I can't play with him. He's the one. That's when I knew.
Then there was a lot of backlash from family and friends, actually. Family and friends. The same people that we actually kind of met through. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of backlash coming from it. And it was more so oh, okay. This now looked to me, again, I'm still carnal. I didn't know much. Clearly, I was still in God's will by the grace of God. But, that happened. And then I was like, yeah, I'm going for it regardless of what anyone says. And I think what really stuck out to me was the time when I became vulnerable to her. Apparently she's a therapist, but she used it on me anyway. I was broken to her and I was just basically expressing myself to her. And she took time to listen and walked me through what you could almost say deliverance in the sense, but using, the knowledge that she had at the time, and that for me gave me a breath of fresh air. But the real deal was when we actually came into Christ. And we had to, of course, fight the battles and, learn the things that we were learning. And I remember I was basically confessing to her all of the mistakes that I made that were not good for me. And I confessed all these things to her. Even these were things that I did while we were still courting or while we were still dating, as some people would say, right? And she basically forgave me through all this. I was like, oh, wow. Because what I expected was she was going to say, I can't go through with this anymore. And let's just call it quits. And I was ready, to be honest, because that was when Jesus was dealing with me a lot. And I was ready, at that point. But when I confessed all that to her and she was like, yeah, it's okay, I forgive you, and I was like, oh wow, this was different. I didn't expect this outcome, and that changed everything for me. And that was when I knew for sure. Having to really know who my wife is, coming from a different culture, right? I grew up in Nigeria, where the culture is different. You're taught to respect your elders. You see mothers, you see even husbands and wives, how they relate to each other. And there was a way she used to talk, and it was very like, Lord, how can I deal with this? And that was very challenging for me. Sometimes those things make me want to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm over with this. That's how I overcame it. Read my Bible, reported her to God first. Actually, I would go on my knees, and I would just pray to God. I'll say, God, hey, like, this girl, she started again. Not to sound like I'm patronizing, right? But again, at the time, we had already joined KFT by God's grace, right? And the teachings that we're getting, very, very like on point, precise. It's like, these are the teachings that every time I'm going through those things, Apostle is answering those questions right there on the altar. And Prophetess is either talking about it on the live. And by the grace of God, God will actually convict her.
I guess I never knew that he was going to God about me in prayer, but I would get dreams. And in these dreams, the Lord would use Apostle's face or Prophetess's face to literally rebuke me from here to tomorrow. I mean, I would wake up in tears, just like, what is going on? It was actually so real, actually to the point where I would actually avoid Apostle because I thought he actually knew what was going on. So when Apostle was coming, I would just avoid him because I'm like, this guy, he's always yelling at me in my dreams. The biggest challenge was actually almost in the beginning of the marriage when we were living in my parents' basement. Now that was a big, big challenge because anybody, as you're married, you don't want to be in your parents' home. But that was our starting point, and that happened to be our starting point because the Lord wanted it to be our starting point. So here I am, a child, and married in their basement, So there were certain things that I felt like, this one, I can't. I just didn't know what to do, and especially I felt bad because he was also going through it with me. I guess, how we overcame was one, just seeking the Lord's face, asking for direction on where he wanted us to be. And by God's grace, he told us he wanted to be in Connecticut. And he opened the door for us. I think just also allowing God to be the Jehovah Jireh. Because if not for the Lord, we wouldn't have probably left that situation as fast as we did.
Just to add to what she's saying, it's not like they're bad people.
No, they're not bad people. No.
It was more so our mindset, I guess, at the time.
We're still growing in Christ, and we're still growing.
And then, of course, as a man, you don't want to be in your in-laws' house. Actually, God bless them. They really helped us with that time, that season, that transfer. Because not every parent, not every in-law would actually help their in-law. Not every parent would decide to help their child in a situation like that. But they stood for us, and I just want to say God bless them for that.
Yeah.
But seeing them every day is like seeing them grow from the baby stage. What's the word for babies? Babies, right? Yeah, the baby stage, newborn stage, to the toddler stage that they're in right now. It's like, wow, God can actually do a thing like this. Because I remember the birth of my first child, I actually cried because it was an experience. And in that moment, I was just basically experiencing God's love. Knowing that God used my life to restore me. I grew up, my father not being in the picture, and now I'm here of my own, having a family of my own by the grace of God, with a wife, not by the grace of God making the mistakes that my father has made, and God is using me in this season. And this is nothing against my father, I love him, but God is using me to restore things back to normal. I see it as a big assignment, and I do not take it lightly. It constantly keeps me at the feet of Jesus. As long as you know who you are in Christ, every other thing that surrounds you would help and always point back to your relationship with Christ.
The challenge for me as a woman, as a wife, and as a mom, would be knowing how to spread the love. So when my first daughter was born, of course, we're both loving on her because that's our first child. But then when number 2 came, I'm like, okay, now I gotta learn how to Loved him, loved my daughter, my first daughter, now the second one. Okay, cool. I was getting the hang of that.
And then number 3 came.
And then number 3 came. And now I'm like, now I gotta learn how to spread the love to him. First, second, and now third. It's still an ongoing challenge for me. I'm still trying to understand the ins and outs and still learning what times and seasons are. So being a mom strengthened my relationship with God. Getting to wake up next to my best friend. And I'm not gonna make it a face. Everyone is not privileged to actually marry right. The mercies of God allowed us to be in alignment without being in alignment. And this is not for me to say that, oh, it will work for everybody.
No.
This is just the mercies of God. Like, the Lord showed us mercy by not allowing us to marry wrong. Doing marriage with a person who actually, 1, loves Christ first, 2, loves himself, and then 3, me. And the reason why it's in that order is because, first of all, he must love Christ first. He must love God first in order to even love himself. And if he doesn't love himself, he can't love me.
You're able to build a vision with someone. It's not everyone that you can actually have a vision and then they will be able to help you carry that vision. There's times where my faith is lacking and she's there to help me boost my faith. I guess it must have been my citizenship process where I'm like, yeah, you know what, it is what it is. She's like, no, baby, we'll get it. Don't worry about it. We'll get it.
By the grace of God, at exactly 11 a.m., I became a citizen of the United States of America.
But knowing that there's someone there to cheerlead you even through those challenges is actually a big deal.
He's actually very intentional about planning date night. Like, very intentional about planning date night, making sure that he gets someone. He doesn't even consult me. He was like, okay, we're going on a date. And I'm like, okay, so who's gonna watch the children? Who's gonna, you know? And he has already settled that. You actually bring the comedic relief that is needed in many of our day-to-day hassles. You're ambitious, you're caring, you're understanding, you're confident, you're daring, you're a great father, you're a great listener. You never make me give up on myself. Another thing is because you love God, literally. And your heart for Christ actually makes me happy because I don't know, I knew I never wanted a husband who didn't know God. And so the fact that you do know God and not just know him, but you're actively seeking his face, you know, it makes life easier for me, life easier for your children.
I love you because you love Christ. I actually love how you mother the children. Also, I love you because, you know how to love me in a sense. And you're a woman that carries destiny. You know, you're a woman that carries destiny. You bring balance to my life. And that's why I love you. Come on, girls, come give daddy a hug. You okay?
It's so cute.
You good?
Aww,
We would love to invite you for our Love Day event happening on
February 8th at 6 p.m. hosted by
Apostle Dominic Osei and Prophetess Leslie Osei.
with special guests Pastor Kingsley and Mildred
Mildred Okonkwo.
Okonkwo. We better see you there. Don't miss out.
Don't miss out.